Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation of OTF Connects, the best Web 2.0 app for the classroom, with Susan Watt and Trish Morgan, who have presented for us a few times this year, and so we're thrilled to have them back again. And for those of you that signed up some time ago, we certainly appreciate your ability to join us tonight, and we're thrilled to have you this late in the year when sometimes weather is competing for your time. And so thank you so much for being here tonight, especially when we can see where we're all from across the province. We do love our maps, we really do. And we're thrilled, of course, to have Susan and Trish presenting on this particular topic tonight, because there's always new and ever-changing things out there, and Susan and Trish are quite on top of it, so we are thrilled to have them here. And I am just going to hand things over to Susan and Trish, and enjoy the session tonight, folks.
Good evening, everybody. We're really happy to be here. We want to thank, right off the top, Louise for all the troubleshooting that she's been doing for the last half an hour. We heard tiny little frustration sounds, but she was working her magic to get the slideshow uploaded. So we create a Google presentation, which I then convert to a PowerPoint, which then gets shared with Louise, and then she uploads it into Blackboard Collaborate. And Blackboard doesn't always like certain types of content. So tonight it was fussing with that image that you can see in the background, which I had reduced the transparency, and anyway, big fuss. It's supposed to be a lavender background with a little transparent, with a nice little image on top, and then our text on top, but we lost the lavender, so you can just imagine if the lavender's there, it's really not significant. Anyway, here we go. Let's move on and get going. So I'll start. My name is Susan Watt, and I'm a technology support teacher in IT services. We both work for the Waterloo Region District School Board. We're both involved with our local ETFO executive, and I'm the equity rep on the executive.
Hello everybody, my name is Trish Morgan, and as you can see, I'm teaching grade 5 this year. Next year I'm making a switch to 3 and 3-4. Pretty excited about that. And I use a lot of this technology in the classroom, so I kind of test out some of the new things, and Susan digs around and finds all the cool stuff for me.
I didn't really tell you what my job is. I think they're quite different in different boards around the province. So as a technology support teacher, I support our 102 elementary schools, some loosely and some quite closely. I do a lot of work with teachers, and I also work in classrooms. So it's a job with tons of variety, lots of interest. So we would like to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what you do. So you can either use stickers and put them in your area, or it's nice with a smaller group, because I think we've got time or space on the page to get you to put a text box and tell us a little bit about your role.
And this is always helpful for us as I try to share some examples. Then I know whether I should make some kindergarten suggestions, because I do in my role, I try to buddy up with all the primary grades as well at some point throughout the year. Looks like we're getting a nice range of people again. We always like that. It's nice for when it's your turn to share as well.
Okay, we have someone from senior high school. Look at that.
I'll bet the folks out in the lovely rural school are glad the winter has finally wound its way down.
Well, maybe. I think we're getting frost tonight. We were scrambling around dragging all of our freshly planted annuals into the garage. I was worried that we would be, as Louise mentioned, competing with beautiful weather tonight, but we're not. The lake, oh my goodness.
Yes, we saw pictures of that on the Weather Network.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's probably good. Thank you for sharing, and we'll move on to our next slide now.
No kindies this time, okay.
So just, I always like to do a quick agenda so that you have a sense of our flow through the evening. So we're going to begin with just a little bit of history, like what is Web 2.0 and where did it come from and where is it going? Then we're going to look a little bit more closely at Web 2.0 and how it fits into our classrooms. We will look at how this whole world has changed because we're going mobile. And that's, if you're not there yet, we're all heading in that direction. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how that's changing the landscape of 21st century classrooms. Then we're actually going to leave this slideshow, and as Louise mentioned, we're going to go out to a website that Trish and I have created quite a while ago. We've done this workshop a few times, and we'll take you out to that website and give you a bit of a tour, and all of the activities that we're going to do tonight and several others are on there. So we'll explore some activities, then we'll come back to the slideshow again and kind of finish up with some talk about SAMR, some other great options for Web 2.0 that we won't have time to look at tonight, but that you really, we will encourage you to explore on your own. We'll finish up with a discussion about digital citizenship and how important that is in this whole world of working online, and then finish up with some talk about resources and closing.
And as we go through the evening, you'll notice that one of us does some speaking, the other will be monitoring the chat, so feel free to throw in any questions, and we can be multitasking because there's two of us.
Okay, I'm going to move on. There is Diane, I'll answer your question in the chat as Trish moves on.
Excellent. So here we are at the beginning of the web. And it wasn't always called Web 1.0. In fact, it was just called the web, and originally just the World Wide Web. I was reminiscing with Susan earlier about the first staff member that I knew who could get onto the internet, and it definitely was just before 1999. It showed up in the staff room. And at that time, as you can see, it was read-only. It was just for information. And in fact, content consumption is what we call that. And there was no expectation of interaction or us contributing to it. It was somebody else providing information for us. And then it was dubbed the information age. So then we head on and we get to Web 2.0. Well, what was the difference there? Well, in 1999, the first blogs were introduced, and some of the first ones were LiveJournal and Blogger. And it's very interesting to think about where the word blog came from. Apparently it was a fellow that was doing some web logging from those two words, but it turns out in the sidebar he put the words "we blog," and it ended up just being shortened down to blog eventually. And it became something that involved read, write, and publish. Suddenly you could share your thoughts out there to everyone, and in that way contribute to and interact with everybody and the web. People really wanted it at that time.
Okay, so Web 2.0 is what we're talking about tonight, and Web 2.0 continues to grow the options. However, if you do any reading into sort of the world of online tools and versions of the web, we have actually moved up through 3, 4, and 5. So just quickly, Web 3.0 was sort of late single digits in the 2000s, so 2008, 2009, 2010. And it became a web, well, and it's like Greek reading about this. You'll see that on one of the slides coming up, I've given you a link which explains it all. And you can Google these things and find them. But this became the intelligent web. And I think most of us started to notice the intelligent web as a web that started to predict for us and personalize for us. So when you do a search or down the sidebar of your Gmail or Facebook page, you'll see that there's advertising and content that seems to be personalized to you. And in fact, that's what's happening. The semantic markup that's referred to is building a relationship between the user and the technology. And so this is not just read, write, and publish, but it's building a relationship between you and your experiences on the web, which, you know, a lot of people think is a little bit freaky, me included at times. And Web 4.0 is the change that happened, and this was, I would say, probably about 5 years ago, when we started to realize that most people were accessing these web tools using mobile devices. And so the web changed to be fully viewable and operable with mobile devices as well as desktop computers. And it was quite a shift in how websites were designed, and the kind of navigation of websites completely changed with the overriding of mobile devices over desktops. And then I've been reading a little bit about 5.0. You'll have to do this as well. But this is when your technology starts to make what we might have called human decisions, and it starts to appear that it has feeling and that it really knows you as a person. Anybody ever seen, what was that movie? Her. Anyone seen Her? Mm-hmm. That would be an emotional web example. And, you know, okay, Louise is right on it, and that's the link at the bottom of that page. And there's tons of others, but that's just the one that I thought gives a really nice synopsis of all the different versions of the web. So tonight we're focusing on.
So that's kind of cool. Maybe you can head to your staff rooms tomorrow and say, hey, did you know there's a Web 3.0 and 4.0 and 5.0? You're going to let them know where you learned about all that, of course, too. But we titled this one the Web 2.0 tools, and we're going to focus on those, allow you to contribute, interact, you and your students. And the second bullet is quite important, connecting those two words, thinking about Web 2.0 equal with social media. Okay? In this age, we are definitely going to be focusing on, we are in a world where we have accounts, usernames, and passwords. We need to treat this as a skill that we learn. It's unavoidable. It's going to be definitely a part of our lives and for sure our students' lives. So this is something that needs to be taught. And I can't believe it, but this is, out of about 100 presentations I've ever seen, Susan actually made some typos. And a plethora of options. Lots of them. It's growing continually. In fact, those things that you get familiar with, you get some websites that you really like, they may not be there the next year. And that's a real change in the world of teaching. I certainly can think of many teachers I had growing up, and they had the same textbooks and they used them for 10, 15 years. I could see my older brother's names in the textbooks because you had to sign them in there. That's not how the world is anymore. So many things happening all the time.
Yeah, and I do take responsibility for that plethora. I laughed when I saw it. Oh. So I mentioned before that we're moving mobile, and I think it's not only the fact that the web services have changed as a result of the fact that we have mobile devices, but we also have greater access to all of these services because we have mobile devices. You know, we've all grown up with technology, I would assume, in a lab arrangement in our schools. And you take your students out of your classroom for one period a week or whatever it happens to be in your area, and you go down to the lab and you have your experience, and then you come back to the classroom. Well, once a week is not really enough to build a lot of skill in this area or in any area of technology. But now that we possibly have these devices and we have greater access to them, we certainly have more options to visit our classroom blog or to try out this or that, many of the tools that we're going to talk about tonight. And I'm curious if you could, on this slide, put a sticker, some kind of graphic, beside any of the devices on this page that you have access to in your school. The middle one there is just a series of devices, and I usually use that one when I'm talking about bring your own devices at schools. A lot of our schools in Waterloo Region are starting to invite students to bring in their own devices and use them. So I'm curious to see some check marks there on Chromebooks and iPads. Mm-hmm. The Mac desktop, we're a lucky board that has used Macs, but let's just use that as desktop computers. So if you have any model of desktop in your school, it can go there. Doesn't have to be Mac. So lots of iPads. Mm-hmm.
We have the two types of iPads, the larger ones and the minis.
Yeah, we have both in our schools as well. And we're spelling errors corrected. Look at Louise. Thank you. Awesome. I'm curious, I wouldn't mind in the chat now or sometime. We're finding in our smaller schools, because of the number of devices that have been deployed and possibly some purchasing that has been done at the school level, that there are starting to be classrooms that have devices allocated permanently. So they're no longer in a borrowing situation. In fact, they have 5 iPads or 5 Chromebooks. So I'm curious for you to share in the chat how do you access these devices that you've put check marks on in here? Do you borrow them, or do you have them? We're going to go on with the slideshow, but we'd love to see that information if you can add it in the chat. Yeah, currently don't have a computer lab. That's fantastic. We're finding that here as well, that we have some schools, I would say maybe 5 to 10% of our elementary schools now have no longer a lab, and they have either traded in, well, mostly they've traded in for mobile devices, and we're pushing that next year so that over the next 5 years our schools will be fully mobile, because that's the way the world's going. And our CIO, Mark Carbone, is a big advocate for being at the front of the wave and you know, modeling the change. And so the goal is that over the next 5 years, each year schools will be trading in and going more mobile.
We won't have it.
Yeah, and I think Trish is reminding me another thing that we're encouraging here in our region is that we're not really looking for one magic device that does everything, that we are in fact wanting to encourage, at least at the elementary level, a variety of devices, so that iPads, which are awesome for content creation, are available to you when you need them, that Chromebooks, which are awesome for accessing your Google Apps for education and needing anything that needs a keyboard and so on. Personal devices are fabulous for accessing some of the Web 2.0 tools that we're going to talk about tonight. So a variety is really our goal, and it's not everybody's, but it's where we're heading in our area. It seems to be that's where a lot of the technology research is suggesting is a good idea. And of course, the other big change that had to happen before we could have mobile devices in classrooms is access to Wi-Fi. And in our board, this was done first. This was a very careful decision that we provide Wi-Fi access first and then put mobile devices in. And I know that some of you are probably still struggling with. Why don't you, I would love to know, can you put a sticker just anywhere on this page? If your school is fully wireless, portables included, show us a happy face on the map, or a check mark is good. Okay, that's great to see. I think that's different even from a year or two
absolutely.
ago. Yep, for sure. Trish and I do other workshops around for ETFO and so on, and you know, we often meet people that are still struggling with Wi-Fi, but it's improving all the time, so good to hear.
We often tell the story how we did iPad workshops about 5 years ago, and teachers would show up with the iPads in the box. They were brand new to them, and we had to take the wrappers off and get them going, and now it's pretty commonplace. Alrighty, so we're moving along, and we want to talk a little bit about what social media is. I'll let you read that first paragraph yourself, with the focus on the word interactive. And as you get to the end of that first paragraph, what we'd like you to do is to take a look at some of the examples. These are some that we see in our board for sure. And you're such a great sticker group. Let's do it a little bit more. I think I'll mention WordPress is a website creation and blog area. Kid blog is popular. Twitter we will be speaking to a little bit more. Facebook I'm pretty sure most of you might know. Instagram has to do with photos. Kik is something that's very popular with students right now, and it's kind of a chatting area that they use. Tumblr is also another place for photos. Edmodo is a type of blended learning. YouTube is for video sharing. Vine is a type of video sharing. It's for a 6-second image that loops around. Google Plus is part of the Google world. Snapchat, as you can probably figure out, is photos and chatting, and Flickr is also a photo place. So if you personally use any of these, you want to put a little smiley face or check mark right over top of the words that you use. Just love watching these pop up. I hope you're finding it as interesting as we are, seeing what other people use. As you are all teachers, it's always fascinating to find out. Yep, as predicted, I didn't think KIC would be too many of you. It does seem to be a student-related one. Wow, good group. We got a good social media group here.
I did a presentation in the fall for a technology conference, and I did a survey of primary kids, junior kids, intermediate kids, and teachers about their use of social media, which was fascinating. I gave them a choice of about 25 different apps to select, and this was for personal use more than it was for anything else, and it was so interesting, just the differences in the age groups and what people are using them for.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go on. So this page here is just a sort of a visual for you. A lot of the same ideas, a few different ones on here, such as Voicethread, and many of these are from our board. They are actuals. I do know Mrs. Streeter, and she does use this. It's always kind of interesting for you to see it written out in paragraph form and word lists, and then to present something using a graphic. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like the graphic change. It's much more interesting to look at as well, something to think about as you create presentations or information for students sometimes. We just thought we'd throw that one in there. Anything else, Robin? Okay, here we go to how we came about choosing, because there are millions of websites out there. I don't think I'm overestimating that number. To choose from, how do we narrow this down? We only have, an hour and a half to share with you. We have criteria, and at our board, I'm pretty proud of the way that we've selected, whether it's apps for iPads or websites that we would use. Okay? And in order there you can see tried and true. So while I said some of them may be changing, there are a few that have stuck around for 4 or 5 years that I've been using them for sure. The quality, and if it sticks around, it usually has quality, but sometimes they do morph. They start out in one version and they change. For example, we're going to be using something called Padlet, but it originally started as WallWisher. And as they improve, the quality always goes up. And of course, meeting our goals and pedagogy, very important. And the third one, very important to always test this out. And we do have a group of people that do this for us, trying what it looks like on different devices. And that's pretty important. And I saw a few people mentioning about Wi-Fi issues. And I know at our board they've been constantly trying to increase the bandwidth to keep up with it. Don't introduce more devices if you aren't ready to get your bandwidth going. Free, gotta love free. We've deployed so many devices to schools that if you wanted to put apps on there or applications on Chromebooks or anything like that, you have to multiply that by thousands. So free, 0 multiplies quite nicely compared to even 99 cents for that kind of thing. And of course the last one, we try very hard to do this, to have it available to students without the need for an account. Although we know that that's changing and that we do have to deal with those issues for sure. Sometimes it is completely worth it to go through the process of signing students up or having a teacher account as an umbrella account, and then you give out accounts to students. So that's how we got a little bit close to how we chose what to show you tonight.
So I mentioned that we have created a website that we're going to go out to now. And the website, well, I'm going to take you on a little tour of it. But what we're hoping to do for the next 45 minutes or so is to spend most of our time on the website, but occasionally come back here to Blackboard Collaborate to post a comment or to ask a question or just to get some instruction from Trish and from me about an upcoming activity. So we're hoping that that will be easy enough for all of you to work out, is to have your Blackboard window open and then to also have your a browser window open and be able to go back to the website and sort of go back and forth. So however you need to organize that, and if we can help, just put a question into the comment area. So I'm going to go to the web tour, and I'm going to take you out to this site
and getting that
do
set
a little
up
bit of
and
a tour of it, and then we'll get started on the first activity.
Susan's going to put in the web page there. Give us a green check mark if you see it in that web tour space where the slides were. And if you don't, the link will be in the chat. And if you need to click on the link in the chat, it is going to open a browser window over top of your Blackboard Collaborate. So Susan, as you're describing where you're taking people to on your website, just make sure you're explicit with the instructions so that people who can hear but not see, and they're looking at it in their own browser, that they know where to go. And what else was I going to say? Oh yes, and to come back into your Blackboard, you're just going to look on your program ribbon or dock at the bottom of your screen for the purple circle. That's Blackboard. So green check mark if you can see the best of the best Web 2.0 tools for the classroom in that main sharing area now. And if you're wondering where your check mark tool is, it's up under your name at the top of the participants list.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the home page of the website, and you can see up in the top left corner that there are there's 4 pages in the site. So we're now looking at the home page, and if I were to, in a moment we're going to go to the workshop activities. You can see that that's the second link there. And then there's a page called Web 2.0 Favorites, which is a whole long list of our favorites, and then a page of tips and
nope, you should be able to
I'm going to go now to the workshop
browser. Just make sure your follow me box is checked up by your URL, which it should be.
Okay. Yep, it is. Okay, good. So I'm going to click on the workshop. There, go. Okay. So I have now clicked on the workshop activities link. If you're following in your browser, you can also click on the workshop activities link. And you can see that on here we have a rather ambitious selection of activities. But the nice thing is that and we'll watch the clock and we'll get through as many as we can, and we've decided which ones we'll skip if time seems to be of the essence. The nice thing about this, because it's on a website, you can go back to these activities at any time and do them yourself. So we'll try to make sure that we have time to do the ones that need more instruction, and then some of the other ones are really just fun to play with and they need very little instruction, which is good. So we thought we'd begin with doing a Google spreadsheet. So some of you are probably in boards that are using Google Apps for Education, but you don't need to be in order to use these wonderful tools with your students, and there are so many great uses for using Google Spreadsheets or Google Docs with students. So we thought we would just start with one that is an introduction activity. So I'm going to click out to it, talk to it a little bit, and then let you, this link should be working. This link is not working.
Spinning. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go out and grab that link specifically to put in the chat. That might be what works best for this particular one.
Okay.
Yes. You know what? You might want to pop back to the slides. I still see the workshop activities page, so it's probably only your own that's having some issues. Folks, I'm going to put the Google Spreadsheet link in the chat. There you go. And hello, Zuge. All right. And if your spinning doesn't settle down, Susan, I do recommend you click out to the whiteboard mode and then right back into Web Tour.
Okay, I can't do anything. Okay, I'm going to have to do some troubleshooting because I can't click on anything.
Okay, Trish, why don't,
so I'm going to let Trish.
Well, I can click, well, I'm seeing the workshop activities. If everybody else is still seeing that, which I assume they are because we haven't had any comments otherwise, but if you want to click on the Google Spreadsheet link that's in the chat, that'll take us there. And Susan, you may want to, is the Google Spreadsheet fairly self-explanatory? Do you want to give some instructions, and then you could quickly log out and back in again?
So the Google Spreadsheet, you will see that it has across the top of the spreadsheet, it has categories and questions, and we would like everyone to choose one of the rows in the spreadsheet and claim it as your own. So as soon as you click into it, everyone else will see that your color, the cell will be colored. So once a row has been claimed by someone else, then you can claim a different
It's
one.
actually probably because you're on a Mac. You guys are on Mac,
our
right?
internet.
Macs. Yes, there's a problem in WebTour.
Yes.
Well, they can be. After I do find that
they're always a problem in WebTour, are they?
In the WebTour, it does become a bit of a problem. But don't worry about it. I do find that a good fallback position is that I start the WebTour, and then for some reason when it's me that starts it, it seems a little more stable, and we can do it that way as well. What I recommend is the link that you clicked on in the email to log in tonight. I suggest you go back or go to the browser window that's still open that is your Blackboard and refresh it and log in again. You don't even have to log yourselves out. Just log in a second time. You'll be Susan 1 and Trish 1, and that new login should be nice and fresh and working, and then we'll bump out the previous non-working ones.
Okay. Okay, and what I will say that if folks are out there and they've done the Google spreadsheet, there are in the creative activities area. There's I can't see it, but Jackson Pollock and Geoguessr and Free are very easy apps to use. So if you want to go ahead and take a peek at Jackson Pollock, Geoguessr, or Free
So you're Trish, and don't worry, all is well.
Go down there while we log out. That would be great.
You're around, of course it is. I feel like we walked out of the room.
Okay, Susan 1, you turn your microphone on and let us know that that part's working, and then I'm going to bump out your other Susan.
Okay,
I'll fix that. Okay, there you go. Echo problem solved.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm not clicking on the web tour anymore, is that the thing?
That might be our best bet. So you can give me instructions and I'll do the clicking.
Okay, can we just click on the Google spreadsheet and we'll take a look at how it's going?
Absolutely. Oh, I know why it, okay, that's all right. So what I'm going to do here is the Google spreadsheet opens in a new window. So I'm actually going to put that URL in. Okay, so now in the web tour space you should see the Google spreadsheet and see where everyone is at with that. But those of you that have
that will be the case with all, that will be the case with all the links.
Okay.
I tend to do that,
okay.
not collaborate.
No, that's perfect. That's way better functioning for the website. Absolutely. Okay, so go ahead now.
Okay, so I can't see the spreadsheet any longer.
Oh, so you don't see the web tour?
It was there.
It was, and now it wasn't. Very interesting.
It's there really briefly, and then it's not there. But I can go out. I'm going to go out to my browser just to have a look at the.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Good. Some great responses in there. How many of you have used, and a check mark would be good for this, how many of you have used a spreadsheet like this one with students? So I see a couple of check marks, but not too many. So many great ways of using it, and all you need to do is provide access to the website to your students. And there's lots of ways of doing that. You can provide a link to them. You can provide a shortened URL to them. If you're using an iPad or other device, you can use a QR code, which is a great way of providing access to a website really quickly. So I would like to move on to, if you have a look at the, Louise, I'm still not seeing, can we go back to the, not to the spreadsheet, but to the activity, there we go, to the activities page. So you'll see that we've divided the activities into creative activities, critical thinking activities, and communication and collaboration. And we feel pretty strongly, as Trish mentioned, that these are the best purposes for using technology in school, not just Web 2.0, but all uses of technology. We know that there are lots of tools out there for drill and practice, and we tend not to encourage those or provide access to those in our workshops. So we really prefer that the students be doing the content creation themselves. So the first three activities are creative activities, and the first one, number one, is a word cloud, and Trisha's going to talk about word cloud. Okay, Trisha's still lost, so do you want to use mine? So Louise, can you click on the word cloud, and Trisha's going to talk about creating a word cloud.
Okay. So as she clicks on word cloud and pulls that up for us, this is kind of a neat thing that came around a few years ago, and you see it now all over the place in advertisements, on T-shirts, all that kind of thing. You'll see one over to the right. That's the big heart there with all the words internet allowing interactions. That is indeed a word cloud. That particular one is one called a Tagzito, where you can choose a shape and all the words that you want are put in there. So what's the idea behind word cloud? Well, you select some text or you input text and it will arrange it for you creatively. I've used this many different ways in my classroom. A few of my favorites are to have students listen to a story that I'm doing as a read aloud, then they choose some of the main important keywords with it, and they input those into a word cloud and create what's known as like a Wordle, that kind of thing, or a word cloud. And it lets me know if they've really caught on to the main idea. It's a good way to show summarizing. I can do it after a chapter or after a whole book. I've used it before. One of my favorite ways to use it is in the fall when we talk about Terry Fox. And I'll use it as an exit idea for students. We'll have talked about Terry Fox a little bit, and they brainstorm a word to describe Terry. And they must give me a word before they head out for like a recess break or that kind of thing. And the neat thing about these is that when you click on, if you're opening up ABC, you click to start, you type and paste your words into the box. If you want a word to be larger and have more significance or look more important, you type it in more than one time. Okay? The more times you type it in, the larger that word will be, the bigger the font is. Pretty nice way to show some understanding and meaning for these word clouds. I use them, I put all my students' names into a word cloud, put it on my door. We've used all kinds of subject areas for word clouds. So I see that she has given you the link for ABC, yeah. Terrific site for you to head to, and like I said, this is one of my favorite aspects of word clouds and ABC, yeah.
So there's Wordle and Tagzito are two other very popular word cloud generators. And we love them both. The problem with both of them is that there are issues, there tend to be very common issues with updated Java and so on. So they're tough to do in workshops like this when people are using all different technologies. And ABC Ya's word cloud is simpler and doesn't have the same issues. So, but I would certainly recommend that you give a try, and once we get to back to the website and looking on the resources page, you'll see links to both Wordle and Tagzito, and we would really recommend that you take a look at them. Wordle makes nice graphics with words. The difference with Tagzito is that Tagzito allows you to put them into a shape. just like you saw the heart shape on our page on the website.
Let me try.
No. Okay.
Yes.
We're still struggling here.
Yes,
Louise,
no, that's
with,
okay. It went blank for me as well.
Anything happening. We're seeing pretty much a blank on our
again.
on
Okay,
our screen,
where would you like to go next?
Let's go to no. Okay, we're gonna actually skip the wanted poster just in light of all this because it means clicking between 2 or 3 different websites. So I think we'll pass on the wanted poster. But the wanted poster, I'll talk about it for a second. The wanted poster lets you create. Actually, Louise, if you can click on where it says sample here, we won't make them, but I'll show you what it looks like. So the sample here lets you go and see what a finished wanted poster looks like, and they're very cool to do anytime you're studying famous people, or Trish has done them for Terry Fox, and wanted for positive things, right? So environmentalists or peace activists or politicians, whatever. Kids can make them for themselves. They're very simple to make. It just involves going and finding an image. And that's a great opportunity to talk to students about searching for images online and how do we do that following the rules of copyright and so on. And then they can use these as part of a project. They can save the image because it saves right to your desktop as a JPEG. And then you could add it to a title page of a slideshow. If you were making a slideshow in Keynote or PowerPoint or Google presentation, it can get added into any type of word processing document as a nice little graphic. So
next year I'm going to use it with my buddy class, and we'll practice some good digital citizenship about asking permission for photos, and they're going to make a buddy wanted poster. Wanted my buddy, somebody that, a nice positive words for them. I also like it for teaching money values as well too.
Awesome. Trish always thinks of great things to do with her buddy classes. It's pretty amazing. You'll notice on the workshop activities page and also on the resources page when we get there, or sorry, the favorites page, is that we have mentioned in pink iPad friendly or iPad app, and this is really growing. When we used to do this workshop 5 years ago before devices, that wasn't an issue, but now we're finding that every time we do this, there's an increasing number of Web 2.0 apps that are available online. Very easy.
So if Louise, you can click on workshop activities again.
Okay, Trish, I just want to let you know I'm going to bump out your original Trish so that Trish 2 is just there, okay?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Yep. I'm sure the Jackson Pollock.
Okay, so the next 3 are the ones that we talked to earlier when we were having trouble with the web tour. So we're going to give you, how long? Let's say 7 minutes, to play with Jackson Pollock, Geoguessr, and FreeRice. All 3 are very easy to use and really don't need instruction, or the instruction that you get is on the page. There was a question in the chat about the Jackson Pollock. So Louise, can you click on the Jackson Pollock, and would I be able to do it in the web?
Oh, let's let Louise do it. She'll have fun.
Oh yeah, let's let Louise do it. Awesome. So just click on the link Jackson Pollock, and someone was saying they didn't think it was working. And it does look like it's not working because Jackson Pollock, I don't know if you are familiar with Jackson Pollock art. This is a great thing to have students go and do some searching for. Jackson Pollock was the American artist who was famous for, oh, this is interesting.
I can see why you said it wasn't working.
Okay, let me go grab it.
Okay, continue.
To the web tour?
Yes, can you hear me now? Yes, you can go ahead and try and put something in the web tour, or click the link in the chat and I'll open it in the web tour for you.
I think it just says the wrong link. Yeah, try that, jackson.org. Yep.
Yes?
Looks like it's there.
Okay, the link is in the chat. JacksonPollock.org is the one we wanted to go to. It's not working in the web in the web tour. So I'll just explain it, because if people are doing this on their own in their own browser, it opens up a blank white page, and as soon as you start mousing on the page, it starts dropping paint. And when you click your mouse, it changes the paint color. So Jackson Pollock is the artist that threw paint in various styles and made amazing works of art. This is just fun, fun to play with. So, sorry? Okay, I got to get out too. The other one that we thought you would play with is Geoguessr, which is a really cool one that lets you make some critical thinking decisions about where you are in the world and make some guesses. And this has led to some great discussion in classes and some, going out onto other websites to search for information about places in the world. So play with Geoguessr, think about your students and the applicability. And Free Rice is another one. It's a UN site, and it teaches vocabulary, and you raise money to buy rice for developing countries. And right now there's an initiative about the earthquake in Nepal, which is interesting. I just read about that. So what we thought we'd have you do is just play with the three, experiment with the three, and then choose one and come back to the comments area and share a comment regarding how the usability of this with your students. What would you do with it, etc. So. Awesome. Those were some really great comments. Thank you, everyone, for putting your comments and your suggestions for how you would use these activities. So some really good ideas in there. Thank you.
And as Louise has mentioned, you can always go back to these, and we've got more for you, too. So I am going to take over and have Louise go back to the workshop activities page. And if Louise would be my student, I'm going to have her choose the next link, which is Create a Graph. And if possible, if you can open that up, I'll walk Louise through it, and everybody can take a look at that, how you go about doing this one. Love Create a Graph. If you've worked with any students, grade 3 and up, where they have to create a bar graph and you've used graph paper, you'll notice that in your curriculum expectations, they are to use a computer option at some time to create graphs. So this one is a great one for that. It hasn't changed much over the last few years, and I have recently found out that it works on my phone, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to be having students go out and gather data with their phone and input it directly into this one. So great, Louise, that looks good. I'm going to have you click on Bar Graph right in the middle of the page there. And it should take you, because you have to select a graph type to begin, and choose bar graph, a nice easy one. And we'll see what pops up when you click on bar graph.
I'm on the bar graph page. Are you seeing that yet?
No.
Of course not. Okay, does everybody else see that we're on the bar graph page, where there's on the right, it says bar graph at the top, and then it's got a bunch of tabs down the right, and on the left it's got examples and help?
Some do, some don't.
If you don't, I definitely recommend that you click on the link in the chat and follow along with Trish's instructions that I'll be following along with here as well.
All right,
so if the web tour is working for you, you'll see it. If it's not, definitely go and follow along by clicking the link in the chat.
All right, so I'm going to start giving you instructions, Louise. Next thing I want you to, you don't need to do anything to that first page that's called Design. That's a nice one to come back to later. And I kind of like that because we can refine this graph at any time. It remembers everything for us. And the defaults are pretty nice, I always find. So the next thing you're going to click on at the side is Data. So if you click Data, you will now see a couple of places to input information. And again, I love this because it's, typing options for students that have fine motor issues, and it really reinforces the parts of a graph. So you can go ahead and just type in a quick title for it. We'll call it Temperature, would be a good one. And you don't have to put the x-axis label right now if you don't want to, but you could put something like degrees Celsius. The x-axis would be the days, y-axis could be degrees Celsius, that kind of thing. The source, I often have them put their name as the source for the graph. That's a great place to have it labeled. The spot that you want to input more data is Item Label, and you could call that, for example, Monday for item 1, and then for item 2 would be Tuesday. In the section where it's called Value, that's where you would punch in your temperatures. And so you just choose a couple of temperatures, pop those in. And a really cool feature is the minimum value and the maximum value. And that teaches students to think about what should my range of my graph be. Do I have temperatures that go below 0? Is everything above 0? How high do I make my numbers go? Make them suit your data. So if you have temperatures between 0 and 25, then your range should be 0 to 25 or 30, whatever you prefer. And once you've put those in, so really all you need is a title, a couple of labels, a couple of temperatures in the value or whatever you are counting, and then you can skip right to Preview next. So if you click on Preview, you instantly see a graph. That's how quickly they are created for you. And not only that, if it doesn't look like you expected it to look, you can go back to your data. Maybe you put numbers in the wrong spot. It really helps you organize your thinking, where numbers go to create different graphs. And of course, students just love then to fancy it up. They can make the bar graph 3D. They can try it as a line graph, which then leads to the conversation of what is the most appropriate graph to be used. There is a print and save option as well, which we just love. The download is the best one for saving it so that you can stay completely paperless. Now that we have our Google Drives and Google Apps, we can share it to those. Or if you're on a desktop, you could save it onto your desktop, that kind of thing, or a Chromebook. Okay, and that is Create a Graph. I love it. Did you have fun with that, Louise?
I did. I need to teach this to my children so they can teach it to their teacher.
Lots of options in there to play with.
It's a good one, and it's really nice that it has stayed so user-friendly. You don't need accounts. We talked about that at the beginning. And as soon as there's a necessity to log in and usernames and passwords, that's a whole other area. So although we'll be looking at a couple that are great, that you need logins for, it's really wonderful when there are still some like this one that are just easy to access on any device. So great example.
So I hope some of you had a chance to play with that one.
We can go back, Louise, to the activities page now, please. I'm just scared to touch anything. I don't want to freeze out in the last half hour here. So on the activities page, right underneath Create a Graph is the next section of communication and collaboration, and there's quite a few options for giving students the opportunity to write, to communicate, and then to collaborate. And one of our favorites is Padlet. Padlet, as Trish mentioned earlier, used to be called Wallwisher, and now it's called Padlet. And it's basically it looks like a big bulletin board, and what you do is you put little notes on it. And you do that by, if you're on a computer, by double-clicking anywhere on the board, or pad as they're called. If you're on an iPad or other touch-screen device, you just touch or double-touch on the screen and it will open it up. So this one works really well on an iPad as well. So what we thought we would do for Padlet, you need to have a purpose for your pad. And in this case, we have created a Padlet to ask for feedback from you about a video that we would like you to watch called Sometimes You're a Caterpillar. So there's actually 2 links, and we're going to set the timer again for maybe 5 minutes because the video I think is 2 minutes long, to go out and watch the video on your own computer. That will be easier than trying to web tour it. And then once you've watched it, go to the Padlet link, and Louise will put both of those in the chat. And the Padlet is basically just a wall, and you'll see on the Padlet the instructions are there. At the top left, it says to respond to one of the 3 questions that are posted in the corners of the Padlet. So you can pick one or all 3 and just play around a little bit with responding to them. So you do have to double click. And you'll find that when you're on the Padlet, you have control over your own little message, but nobody else's. I'm the owner of the Padlet, so as I see your little messages popping in, I will be able to go and move them around, and I may do that, so don't be alarmed if your message seems to be moving, just to make them all visible. So I'm going to stop talking. I think that's probably lots of instruction there. Watch the video and add your comments to Padlet, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes.
Okay, folks, I've put the link for the video first in the chat, and then below it is the link for the Padlet. So start with the video, and then when you're done that, go ahead to the Padlet link.
So Louise, I'm going to give you a different link for the Padlet because it looks like I created a new Padlet and forgot to change the link to it. So I'm going to put a link to the Padlet, everyone, into the chat, and we'll use that one instead of the link on the website.
Enjoy the video.
Perfect, thank you. Susan and Trish, if you happen to be speaking, your microphone is still off. I know I just heard the bell and I wasn't sure.
Yes, the responses are just coming in now, so I'm going to just give folks another few seconds to finish up getting their responses on the Padlet. Looks great so far. Okay, that will still be there if you, it's not going anywhere, so you've got that tab open on your browser now, so you're certainly welcome to continue. We forgot to mention that usually what we say to students is that you put your name in red and then put your response underneath. You also may have noticed on Padlet that when you have a note open, that there's a link symbol, an upload symbol, and a camera underneath it, so you can add images, you can add web links. It doesn't have to be just text. So, if you had, for example, a resource that you wanted to share in I think Trish is off doing an example right now, you can add that to your link. So there's all kinds of different ways of using Padlet in the classroom. And hopefully you'll explore those. Now I will say something about Padlet and accounts. It is possible to create and use a Padlet with your students without an account. So you just go to Padlet.com and you create it, follow the instructions, and you'll do it. There is an advantage, however, to creating a teacher account with Padlet, as there is with several other tools. And you get added features. And we usually recommend that once you get over the, oh, it's another username and password that I have to remember, once you've created a place to save all of those, it is worth it to create the accounts. And what happens with Padlet is that you can then customize the name of your pad, and you can keep track of them all in one place, so you can go back and open previously created Padlets, whereas if you just create it randomly without an account, they're sort of lost out there, and unless you keep the links somewhere, you won't be able to use them. So anyway, we're going to move on. The one after Padlet is Voki. We're going to skip that because it's 8:45, and Voki is a bit of a challenging one. Voki is a talking avatar, and it's a pretty cool thing to try. You do need to have a place to put them, though, because when you finish a Voki, because it's an animation as opposed to just a static JPEG, it provides you with code which has to be copied and pasted somewhere. So if you have a blog or if you have a website, usually there's a HTML tab which allows you to copy and paste code. It is easy enough for kids to do, but it is a set of steps. So anyway, we're going to skip that one for tonight and go on to activity number 3 in communication and collaboration, which is using Today's Meet. Now, Today's Meet is a common tool. If you can give us a check mark if you have used Today's Meet, or an X if you have not. I would be curious to know who has and hasn't used this one. It's a really usable tool. And what we've done for tonight is we've created a discussion about some of the activities that we've looked at. And Louise, if we could get you to click on the Today's Meet link in the activities page, that would be awesome.
She's got it the right one. She just went to todaysmeet.com.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you have to click on, so the Today's Meet website, yes, Louise has put that in there, but the Today's Meet that I have set up for tonight is a different link. I can post that one in if you want to. Why don't I do that, Louise, and you can go to...
I just wanted to send them the actual resource as well, so that they can see how easy it is to set up their own too. Okay, here's the Today's Meet in the web tour as well as in the chat.
So I've set up a Today's Meet, and they're very easy to use. Where it says nickname, you will type in your name, and they used to say name. They've changed it to nickname, which I'm not keen on, and I always talk to students about using your own identity and not using a nickname. So I do have that conversation with kids about using their real name and not somebody else's name and not a nickname. So, and then you click join, and you will now be a member of the Today's Meet discussion. You'll see that my question is posed there. Which of the ideas we have looked at so far are you most excited to try with your students? And once you've signed in and joined, there will be a big blue box, and you can add your responses, and you can see that they're showing up here. So we'll give you just a minute to, we don't need to set the timer, Louise. We'll just give folks a minute to put in their favorite ideas.
Yay, Louise likes Instagram.
So while they're popping in, I'll say a couple of things, and Trish probably will as well, about Today's Meet. It's a wonderful way of giving a voice to every student. I visited a whole bunch of grade 7 and 8 classes in the last couple of weeks, and I wanted their opinion on different things that we were talking about around digital citizenship and creating their own digital identities. And you know, I only had tied one period in these classes, and I wanted to hear from every student, not from the 2 or 3 who always have their hands up. So that's when I love using Today's Meet, is when I really want to hear the voices and the opinions of a whole room of people. I have found, and many other teachers who've used it a lot have found that students who might be reluctant to put their hand up and provide their opinion in the classroom will find a voice using Today's Meet and other online discussion tools. So Padlet is another example of that. So really gives a voice to students, and you can use it anytime you want an answer, anytime you want them to share their opinion, anytime you want them to pick an option and explain their choice. Trish has just modeled a common use in Today's Meet. If someone has said something to which you would like to respond publicly, if you put the @ symbol in front of their name, that gives you a way of targeting their comment and responding to it, and yet it's public, so everyone can see it. So it is that's used in Twitter all the time. That's how you tag someone in Twitter, and it's a really good way of learning that protocol. I often use Today's Meet, in fact, because it's a 140 character limit. I often use Today's Meet as a way to give students and teachers a place to practice writing tweets, and then we move into Twitter.
All right, so I've got lots of classroom ones. I think I'll speak about the most recent time I used Today's Meet. About a week or two ago, we finished up biographies, and the students created, most of them created a slideshow, a Google slideshow to share with the class. So we had a presenter at the front. They're using the big projector up there. I gave out 7 Chromebooks and a Today's Meet about that person that they were was being presented. And those 7 did a Today's Meet listening to the presentation so they could pose questions. I joined in as well too. Also in the class at the time, I gave out some other iPads or Chromebooks, and some people were in Google Docs and they just did jot notes as well there, and others used rubrics and just filled those in. So we tried to have a variety going on, and then the next presenter, we switched it up. So we had several conversations happening. And then I got to have the student who presented go back and take a look at the Today's Meet. And I think Susan will talk about how that you can do that. And what a great feeling for them, because these conversations were all so positive, and they really reflected, so they knew they were being heard because they could see some of it in the writing of the students. And as Susan said, it really gave a chance for the quiet student to let the speaker know, yeah, I'm listening to you, and I found this part interesting. Really good. We really talk a lot about descriptive feedback. This is a great way for students to give feedback to each other, that's for sure.
Today's Meet is another one that you can use very simply by going to todaysmeet.com, and you can set up a chat. Honestly, it takes 30 seconds to set it up. You have to give your chat a name and then choose how long it stays active on the web. After that time that you select, it's gone and no longer accessible. However, there is a new, it was just introduced in July, teacher account option. You can see the sign in and sign up at the top right of the page there. And I would recommend it. Once again, it's very much like Padlet. It's easy to do, username and password, but it allows you to keep track of all of your chats all in one place. And you can provide a transcript of them. You can get a QR code for them. You can change the permissions on them after the fact. So it's really a nice thing to do, nice and easy. So either one is good. Louise, if we could go back now to the, where are we going back to? The whiteboard and back to our, I'm going to move on to, there's the Today's Meet. Sorry, I'm going to skip over this. And I'm just going to take a minute. I would love it if you would show me with a check mark if you have seen this before. This is the SAMR model. And we always like to talk about this in our workshops because it's, and Louise has put a link there to get more information about it. It's a great model for giving you an opportunity to reflect on your integration of technology. It was introduced by someone named Ruben Puntadura. And yeah, I can see that we're sort of a few people have heard of SAMR, and that's terrific. What I love about it is that it's not intended as like a step ladder. It's really a reflection tool. And many of us, when we started, you know, I think Trish was talking about Web 1.0 and when technology was new in schools, most of us used technology at the substitution level, at the bottom of the SAMR model. And what we were doing, and we were excited about it at the time, was really to just substitute technology for paper and pencil. And you know, it seemed revolutionary at the time, but I think the longer we've had technology and the longer we've had apps and different applications, both online and software, developing for use with the technology, we've realized that there's a whole lot more to it than just substituting. And so the other levels on these in the SAMR model are deeper levels of integration of technology. And augmentation, the technology is still substituting. However, there's a significant improvement to the task as a result of the technology, which is good. As we move to the transformative levels, the top 2 levels, modification and redefinition, what starts to happen is that once we become familiar with the technology and the tools available using the technology, we realize that the tasks can be significantly modified to leverage the potential of the technology. And so these are, and the redefinition level are tasks that really were not even possible before. You know, the idea that all of your children can answer a question all at the same time and you get to hear them equally was not possible before today's meet. But if you pose a question in a today's meet and your whole class answers, you have the ability to hear every single voice equally. And that really was not possible. That's a really simple example. But I think that's the whole idea of SAMR, is that we look at it and we reflect on our use of technology and how it's going for us. So I'm going to leave you with that, but I would certainly recommend that you take another look at that and think about it and share that. Great discussion for staff room.
Okay, and as we look at the next slide, BitStrip for Schools, we can think about the SAMR model as we're looking at it.
Just before Trish does this, the next 2 or 3 slides, we're going to go quickly through, but we have shown you in the workshop examples of things that we can do without accounts, but we want to encourage you to start thinking about signing up for some of the wonderful Web 2.0 tools that are out there that do need you to have a teacher account and possibly set up accounts for students. Sorry, I interrupted.
No problem. And it might be a good time for check marks too. If you are using BitStrips for Schools already, this is for Ontario teachers. And love it, love it. It's been around for a few years now. I use it all the time, every grade. I encourage it from the ones all the way up. And so think about a substitution activity. You create an avatar, you put yourself in here. This is made by one of my students. And the idea was showing somebody around or talking about safety at your school. And over to the right, you can see that other students can make comments. Across the bottom, you see the little toolbar that they have. They can give a smile to something. They click comment to add in their comment as well. And it's just a lovely example of them, again, giving feedback to each other and really having an audience and writing for an audience. So I use it in all kinds of subjects. Again, it's sort of as a retell sometimes. We talk about fairy tales. They created a BitStrip to follow along that. I use it for predictions. What do you think is going to happen next in the story? All kinds of possibilities for this one. And let's see, do I see lots of check marks happening? I think so, yeah, 7. So those 3 of you that haven't, check it out, BitStrips for Schools. Really lovely, and you'll enjoy it. So our next slide here are just a few of the other tools that we have. You can see down there on the bottom left, that's my class from last year, I believe. And I have them create websites. Love the idea of them creating sort of a place for them to put their ideas, thoughts, and I'm starting to use it as a place for them to collect their work. It's so easy now for them to take photos with an iPad in the classroom, or maybe a math project or a science project, and now they have a place to put it somewhere. Helps keeps our class paperless, and a chance for them to choose what they think is important, what is a good reflection of their year. I'm also trying to get other teachers so they can make a French page for the French teacher, all kinds of places to put resources. They have learned a lot of skills about creating websites, and they now have better understanding of when they go and use other websites as well. A couple other things there, Edmodo and KidBlog, definitely using some blogging happening, developing those writing skills, communication skills. They just love these tools, that's for sure. Twitter?
Yeah, I wanted to do just a quick little pitch for Twitter. I often have people asking me, where did you hear about that cool new, website? I learn almost everything I know from Twitter. It is a professional learning network. It is the staff room of the 21st century. I don't have a staff room, and that's where I go. I meet my peeps there every day and learn from them, and they learn from me, and it's a great option. And I think a lot of classrooms, check mark if you are using Twitter with your students or professionally, either one. I'd love to know how many of you are tweeters. You can also share your Twitter name in the chat if you'd like to. I'm happy to follow and develop a relationship there. Great place to do some professional learning. And a lot of classrooms are connecting with other classrooms and finding a great place to share and learn from one another using Twitter. So off you go, tweeters. So social media involves putting yourself out there on the web. And there's been an explosion, as we said right off the top, of tools available to us to contribute online. And because of that, in the last 5, 10, 15 years, we have all started to build a digital footprint and a digital identity. And it's, you know, we're in 2015 now, and if you don't have a digital identity in 2015, you're not doing yourself any service. I happen to be retiring at the end of June, and they did interviews to replace me last week, and one of the questions on the interview was, where can I find you online? Now, it's a technology support role, so clearly it's important that that person knows about being online, but it's becoming increasingly important, and it's a question that's being asked of many teachers. How can we model digital citizenship if we ourselves are not digital citizens? So I think I have a few final comments just about the importance of this. If we're providing opportunities in our classrooms to teach students how to use today's need, what kinds of comments make appropriate comments? When you're blogging with your students, when you're using bit strips and you're liking and favoriting other students' comics, you're teaching them the ways of the web, and you're teaching them within a safe, secure environment where they can make mistakes and they can learn and grow from those experiences. So I just think that all of these tools are invaluable in terms of helping our students build that positive digital identity that they're all going to need in their futures. It's going to help them get a job. It's going to help them get into universities. I had some grade 8 students last week that told me that their hockey coach chose the captain of the team this winter based on a Facebook search because he couldn't make a decision and he needed to know about leadership skills. So on this slide, which I'm sure you've been looking at, are some of what I feel are the basic tenets of digital citizenship. It really develops through active participation in the digital world, and all of what we've shown you tonight and the wealth of Web 2.0 tools that are out there allow you to do that. Louise, if I can ask you a favor, if you can put back into, I'm afraid to do it, so I'm going to get you to do it. If you could put the website back into the into the web tour, awesome, and go to the page that's Web 2.0 favorites, and we'll just do a quick explanation of what this page is.
Yep, this usually creates a little bit of a wow when we share it with teachers in workshops. Like we said, we chose just a few to go with you, but we have lots that we have tried. And if you haven't already looked at this page, it's time to. So if we scroll along, you can see that we have categorized them a little bit for you. Again, designated whether they are iPad friendly or not. Lots to choose from here that we enjoy. These are all student approved as well. And we constantly update this, or Susan does at least, to stay with the new ones. It's a great resource for you. If you can't find anything else, keep this website that we've got, Web 2.0, and this is your launch point. Remember, you don't have to go to all of these in a year. Just make sure you do. There was a couple we wanted to do tonight for you for sure, and the games and activities, line writer, awesome June activity to do. You'll get lots of revision out of your students with that one. They'll love it.
Okay, Trish mentioned June. This is a good list of June activities. You know, try them out and then see how they go. And you know, in June you don't have to do any assessment. Really, it's just for you and for giving you some ideas for next year, and you can see how they go and how they might fit into your curriculum for next year. Yes, it's a playground for teachers. Absolutely, it is. So our last slide, we don't need to go back to it, Louise, that's okay. It was just really contact us, and I know that you provide all that information in the follow-up email that comes to people. So we hope we've given you a bit of a taste tonight. As we said right off the top, it was tricky. It's tricky in a workshop like this with everyone at a distance, with all different types of technology. To pick from this wealth of tools that are out there. So we had to stick to the free, don't need account, you know, easy to access, quick and simple. But we hope that it gave you a taste of the possibilities out there. And
you folks demonstrated 21st century skills. You were patient. You tried a couple of things. You adapted to what we were doing. Thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank you. That's we did a little troubleshooting tonight, and we thank you, Louise, once again for helping us through all those technical difficulties. Thank you all very much.
Not a problem, Susan and Trish. Thank you both so much. That was a really good and rich exploration of the Web 2.0 and further tools that are out there. And folks, especially if you're new to OTF Connects, I want to make sure that you get a chance to not only explore the resources that Susan and Trish put together on the website that they've got, but to let you know as well that the links I've just posted there, the first one is the resource page that OTF Connects has for tonight's session, which will also have the link to this recording on it once we're done. And the link, obviously, to Susan and Trish's page is primarily what's there, as well as a few of the key apps that you explored tonight. We definitely want you to take a minute to fill out our feedback form. We only have a couple more sessions left this year, and so all the feedback that's been provided to us throughout the year is going to be getting all consolidated together. We review every session, every time, but all of it's going to get put together, and it's going to be part of a report that informs us as to what we would like to continue with next year and new directions. So definitely give us some ideas in there if you'd like as well. And these links you can actually click on right on the screen as well, the big blue Google one. And our calendar doesn't have too much more left on it, to be honest. We've got 2 sessions next week. The Civic Conversations one is for grade 10 and 11 civics teachers. And I guess that would be grade 9 and 10. And Mind Your Mind, though, is certainly a K-12 session talking about a mental health toolkit for use in the classroom. And so please feel free to come and join us with those sessions. I'll drop the calendar link in the chat as well. And of course, if you have any questions at all that have come from tonight's session, do let us know. You can follow up with an email. You'll get the follow-up email shortly with all of the main links sent to you. So we tweet it out in the morning as well, so definitely follow OTF_PD. And yes, we are thinking about next year, but right now, we're just thrilled that we've had such great participation this year, and we do definitely hope to see you again in the future. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Susan and Trish.